You're listening to The Upland Rookie, a podcast presented by BPRO Kennels, Onyx Hunt, Final Rise, and Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. And welcome to episode 81, Can We Just Cut the Crap? With Emily Corey and Brian Conoley from Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. Guys, BPRO Kennels is making the best dog box on the market today. It is fully customizable. It is just built well, and it's built here in the USA. Give Ben Proctor a holler over at BPRO Kennels and design your custom dog box today, or grab one of their staple 3-hole or 2-hole boxes today. bprokennels.com. Use promo code rookie10, saves 10% off your order at bprokennels.com. And this podcast is also presented to you by Onyx Hunt, the most comprehensive public and private land ownership data mapping tool in the world. Many tools and layers like crop types, tree species, waypoints, and so much more. The Onyx Elite membership is going to give you a ton of access to a whole bunch of benefits, discounts on awesome gear. If you're not using Onyx Hunt already, I highly encourage you, get over to onyxhunt.com and sign up today. And be sure to check out Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, the only sporting dog, high-performance dog food I'm feeding my string of dogs. Have been using this for several years, and Inukshuk has delivered and lived up to and surpassed all the hype you've been hearing about online through friends, kennels, breeders, all that. And it has just been a high-quality premium food. I've been able to cut back several cups of food for my dogs, still keeping weight on them during season, during trialing, whatever it might be. These dogs are in the best shape they've been in, personally, in a long, long time. And thanks to Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, they have 4 incredible formulas. Check them out at inukshukpro.com. And last but not least, Final Rise Gear. I am so pumped and proud to be representing the Final Rise brand. They have been producing year after year quality premium upland gear that is made for the hunter, the bird hunter who is putting on miles after miles, season after season, and wants gear to hold up to the elements of how you are hunting. You got to look no further than finalrise.com. Check out the Summit vest, the Summit XT vest, which is brand new, the Sidekick vest, as well as the Legacy. So many vest options, which are totally customizable. I'm pretty darn confident you're going to find something that works for you and your setup. So check them out at finalrise.com. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Upland Rookie Podcast. I am your host, Will Larson, and it's so good to be back with you guys today. We got episode 81 on tap for you. We're sitting down with Emily Corey of Corey Nutrition and Brian Conoley, both from Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. This dog food that has kind of been just flowing through the Upland space over the last couple of years. It's been so fun just to see the Inukshuk growth and really just get to know the company more and their process of how they are creating this dog food, why they are creating this dog food. And we are going to address some of the common questions, concerns, things that I've heard, things that they have heard from the bird dog community and dog owners out there. And so hopefully we can kind of tackle some of these head on. I think it's going to be a really fun and informative episode for you out there. So get ready for a really good conversation coming up. I did want to kind of jump in, and we got some news. We got some news here. This is exciting. We have a winner of the Final Rise and Upland Rookie Podcast Spring Gear Giveaway. Yes, the Spring Gear Giveaway. Teamed up with Final Rise. They've been a sponsor of the podcast for, about a year now. Yeah, probably about a year. And I was talking with Matt Davis, and he was super gracious to let us give away a vest. Not only any vest, it is a brand new, just released about a month ago, Summit XT vest, as well as a pair of the Final Rise field gloves. So we were able to pick one lucky winner from the Patreon community. So many of you either were returning patrons, some of you jumped on Patreon just recently. Thank you to everyone. Your support of the show means a ton. And so if you want to continue supporting the show, that'd be much, much appreciated. It all goes back to the show, helping with recording equipment, hosting fees, all that kind of stuff to keep the podcast going. So really, really appreciate everyone who's jumped on Patreon and is supporting the show that way. You obviously get into some awesome giveaways like the one we're doing, the Final Rise. So without further ado, the winner, and I just sent him an email, so hopefully he checks his email and hopefully he gets back to me. Otherwise, we're going to have to redraw. So it is Adam McCain. Adam McCain, you have been selected as the Upland Rookie Podcast Spring Gear Giveaway winner. So congrats to Adam. Make sure to get back to me via email. We'll get connected with Matt and the Final Rise team and get you all the details, get you your vest, get it out to you as soon as we can. So congrats, Adam. This is an awesome giveaway. This Summit XT vest, guys, it's taken the Summit vest and all the functionality of that vest and the customization. It has all the normal stuff that the XT or at the Summit will have. But it's got a couple tweaks. It's got a couple things that just sets this over the edge for a vest. Got some magnetic pocket closures. Still has those real big deep pockets, which I really, really love. I have some very freaking large mitts on me, and so dumping shells in there, my cell phone, a headlight, or whatever I need to in those deep pockets really, really has been nice. It's got some, I'm not going to go through all the features, but there's some things on that that I think you're really, really going to enjoy. It's a really kind of step above the tried and true Summit vest. And so anyways, that vest is out there. It's available in 2 colors. Check out finalrise.com and get your hands on one. It's going to be kind of the Cadillac of the Final Rise vest line right now. And so I think it's worth checking out, worth trying to get your hands on one before the season is going to be here, before we know it. I don't have a calendar in front of me. I don't know how many days until September 1st, but I'm counting down. Not officially, but in my head, I'm like, we're one day closer to the season. And so I know we got spring here, we got summer to go through, we got a bunch of stuff to go through, but I wanted to unpack a little more on NASTRA trials. I got a couple questions last week on what I do to prepare for a NASTRA trial or training for a NASTRA trial. So I'll kind of unpack that on this little opening segment, and then we'll dive right into the interview. But so as far as NASTRA goes for me, I'm not going to be your expert on training. You know that. I'm not your trainer. I'm not a pro trainer. I'm figuring things out just as much as the next guy down the street. And so if you have training questions, either listen to some of the guests that have been on the show, listen to some of the pros, some people who've been doing this a long, long time and have some of that insight to share. I'll talk more from just, again, what my experience has been, what I've kind of started to focus on a little bit more. And it's probably good timing. I just came off a NASTRA event this past weekend. So ran one of those here in Colorado, and we just ran on Saturday. So we just ran one of the 2 days, two fields. So we ran twice on Saturday. And so I'll kind of go into first off, one of the things I like about NASTRA, I've ran it for a couple years now, casually, nothing's crazy serious. I'm not going out. I'm not, every weekend going to a trial like some people, but I like it. It's very similar style to hunting. And so as far as the training goes, I don't have to do a ton of different stuff for the trial event. It's going to be things like you want your dog not too close, not too far. My dogs range more farther than I think that maybe the average or maybe average person would like their dogs to range. That's how I like it. For NASTRA, is that too big? I don't know. I don't think it's too big. They stay within the designated field. Sure, they'll run out of bounds a little bit, but then that's where you got to have some good training with your dog to get them back in bounds. If you need to turn a dog, if they're in the far corner and they're going to the out of bounds area of the NASHRA field, then you got to be able to get that dog back in bounds. And so you need to cover a different corner of the field, or if you need to, hey, we're going to hit the middle again because we didn't pick a bird up in the middle, and we're going to try that again. So you need to have some good command skills with your dog. They need to be able to come with you. That's been one of the things we've talked about a lot in some of these series I've done, whether it's George Hickox or the Smiths or other trainers. Some of the big things. Some of the big things are going to be, the dog, coming to you, going with you. And so those are some of the things I like to focus on. And of course, that's going to be similar for a wild bird dog. So I like that it's very similar to hunting. So when we're talking about NASHRA, again, I've ran some of the AKC stuff. I've ran a horseback trial as well as a hunt test. Those are great events as well. I think you have to put a little more, I shouldn't say more. It's going to be a little different, I think, your training for those kinds of events. Again, just from my own experience. So NASHRA, just in the stage of life I'm in, it can be very similar to hunting. I don't have to put a ton of extra or different work in to training for a NASHRA event versus I want a badass bird dog. So obviously you have the retrieve as well. That's a big part of NASHRA as you're getting scored on the retrieve. So I'm going to be honest. My first run, it was my second run on Saturday. Gage was bringing his first bird back and he dropped it. And guess what? I got a really bad retrieve score. You want a dog that is going to be able to bring that bird all the way back to your hand, not drop it, not play with it, just right back to you, maybe come alongside you. You can take one step and grab that bird from the dog. And so that's an area I needed to brush up in. We did some, maybe over the last 2 weeks, just throwing some bumpers. Hindsight, I probably should have got him on some actual dead birds over the last couple of weeks. Just to kind of brush up on some of the retrieve, the hold. So I was pretty disappointed in it. I was a little frustrated. Again, bumpers, he was doing awesome, but he hasn't had a live bird or a dead bird in his mouth for a month and a half, 2 months maybe. And so maybe even longer because we didn't really hunt much in January. So hindsight's 2020. That's something I should have done better at and really kind of focus on a little bit more because that definitely hurt us. So retrieving is definitely a part of it. So, working on the retrieve, again, some people hunting wild birds, they don't want their dog to touch the bird. I know some guys who say, I don't want my dog's mouth on the bird. I just want the bird as is, how I shot it, and I'll go pick it up. And they don't focus on retrieving. That's fine. That won't cut it in NASHRA because that's part of the rules. That's part of the game. And so yeah, that's retrieving the dog, how they work a field. I mean, you want a dog that's kind of 10 to 2-ish. Not really one that's looping back behind you, not one that's, ranging 300 yards in a NASHRA event. And so my dog, Gage, I haven't run Win in NASHRA yet, but Gage has actually been a really good dog to adjust to what we're doing. So if we're hunting sharptail or Huns or something, he's gonna push it to 300 yards if I let him. If I shut my mouth, he's gonna range out and go find birds. But if we then transition to tight cover, he's going to be able to transition, work a lot closer in that tight cover. Sure, I'll communicate with him if I need to turn or range it in a little bit. And then same with NASHRA now. He's kind of able to figure out like, hey, here's this box we play in. Don't go outside of that. Kind of stay in this zone, and we might cover a couple corners multiple times. And he's been able to kind of adapt to that setting as well. Now, I don't know if that's every dog that can do that. I don't know if that comes with age, training, whatever it might be, is probably a factor of a couple things. But again, for NASHRA and wild bird hunting as I do, I've been really lucky with Gage that he can adapt really well. Because again, I don't know how to get him to do that really. So he's really kind of, I guess, figured the rules out for himself, and I've been able to kind of follow along and be pretty fortunate with how he handles that. So, but yeah, other than that with NASHRA, I mean, you're going to need to focus on the retrieve. the handling, and of course the steadiness. You don't want a dog taking a bird out, creeping, flagging. Some of those things are going to either lose you points in NASTRA or get you DQ'd, depending. So those are some of the things I would or have worked on. If I'm speaking to someone who's saying, hey, what do I need to do to get my dog ready for, their first NASTRA, or if I want to try out this trial game, what do I need to do? Those are some of the things I would suggest focusing on. But the reason I like it is kind of what this is, because the whole point of the question here was it's similar. It's not the same. It's not the same as wild bird hunting. Wild bird hunting is very different. Trials are very different, but there's similarities to what you want in a wild bird dog, or what some people would want in a wild bird dog, that transition really, really well to the NASTRA space. So there it is. I'm going to let that all out there and just say, that's my advice. That's from my experience. Again, if you want better tips on training, you're going to want to find a pro trainer who you trust and enjoy, and learn from them on the training side of things. So, other than that, this past weekend's trial, like I said, he had a drop retrieve. He also took a bird out on the second run. And after that, I was like, well, screw this. We got no chance. First run was pretty good. He ran really well, covered ground good. We got beat by Miss Bailey Taylor and her dog. So they had a hell of a run. I think they had 3 or 4 finds on that first brace. So they ran well. I was really happy with Gage's run, the first one. Second one, I was pretty frustrated. He dropped the retrieve on the first one, and then the second find, he slam point. It was beautiful. It was right after the first bird, so we were feeling good. We had one down within 5 minutes. Next one's probably around the 7-minute mark. And I'm like, all right, this is good. We got 2 birds almost in the bag. So he's on point. Maybe 75, maybe more, maybe 100 yards away. He's on point. So I'm walking up. Can't run in the field, so I'm walking up to him. I'm feeling good. Had my gun broke open, and I'm walking, and all right, here we go. And I was kind of looking around and just seeing where the other dog and handler were, and lock my gun, and I'm probably within, I'd say 10 yards of Gage. And I haven't said a word to him at this point. He was steady. He looked good. He was holding tight. And then he just decided, so mind you, the bird was probably, 5 feet in front of him, maybe less, in this bush. It was a planted quail. And he just decided to give me the middle finger and say, screw you, and went and took the bird out. So bird put up a little chase, kind of flew, and then went back down. He caught it. It was frustrating as heck. Didn't get DQ'd, but it was 0 points for that find. So again, super frustrating, disappointed in that. Again, I should have put in more work with him, just getting him on some more birds over the last couple of weeks, kind of getting ready for this. So it's on me, but I was definitely pretty disappointed, but that's how it goes sometimes. So it's not all peaches and cobbler all the time. So anyways, guys, that's sorry for the long intro here. I did want to kind of start addressing some of these. I got a bunch of good questions you guys have written in over the last couple months, and just want to kind of take a couple minutes, probably 5 to 10 minutes typically, and I'll just unpack some of these thoughts or questions or whatever it might be on these different topics. So if you have a topic you would like discuss on the kind of the opening here, shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram at the Upland Rookie Podcast. Other than that, we're going to dive right into the Inukshuk conversation here. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Got a couple of videos up there. Make sure to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That would greatly, greatly help if you guys could. One, make sure you subscribe to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So every episode that comes out, you guys kind of get automatically in your feed. As well as leave a rating and review. Those are awesome. I love reading those. I love just seeing what kind of the impact this show is having on those, or having on you. And so I love reading those reviews on Apple Podcasts. Just seeing kind of how this show has helped you or inspired you in some way has been really encouraging to me. Kind of lets me know, kind of get a pulse for the audience and where things are going. So anyways, would greatly appreciate that as well. So without further ado, again, so sorry for the long intro. We're going to dive into the Inukshuk Pro episode with Emily Corey and Brian Conoley.
We're still cranking out the episodes. Yeah, nice. I've got one recorded that I'm going to bank. We're a little more casual with the release because it's kind of a thing that we do when we can get to it, not a thing that we try to regulate just because there's so many people incoming, which is great. Sure. But no, I spoke to an Anatolian Shepherd breeder, massive dogs protecting ranches out in Montana. Mm-hmm. And then next week, we're really excited. Ryan Reddington, who just won the Iditarod. He's an Inukshuk. The whole team's powered by Inukshuk. So I'm going to get him on the pod for an Iditarod recap. So that'll be the second year in a row where we've got the winner on the show to talk about their race. Cool. So yeah, really excited for that one.
Oh, that's super cool. I'll have to tune into that one. I've been following some of the dog sled people on Instagram. It's fascinating. It's like a whole nother rabbit hole of like,
dude, it's so fun.
Dog sport. It is awesome.
Amazing.
Surfing, skiing, anything where something else is powering you. Sorry, I'm gonna let you go.
No, go ahead. It's just like these people are wild, right? Like it's not only it's the dogs, but it's the woods and the wilderness and the animals and like that cold. Like that cold up there is.
I can only imagine. I mean, they're doing Instagram reels and videos and stuff of like, prepping for a race and everyone's getting to the race and stuff. You can just tell but they're kind of like the people look comfortable. They're like, this is normal.
Oh, they love it. Everyone who does it at that level, especially does it because they love it. But then if you talk to an amateur musher, they're doing it because their dogs love it. They love it. It's addictive. It's like tattoos or alcohol or whatever, man. It's just once it gets into you, like, if you're a dog person, you won't have the ability to kind of drop it. So yeah, I've only done it small scale, pulled by one or two dogs on like a little sled that you stand on. But even that is like super, super fun. And we did it until my dog Ace's shoulder couldn't hack it anymore. He's 12. But yeah, no. Jeez. Dog power.
Yeah, no. Is that kind of a big thing up in Canada too? Maybe the more remote areas? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, big is relative.
Niche. Yeah, it's certainly niche, but it's a much larger community than you'd probably think that it is.
Okay.
And there's more pockets of it. Like if you get around the Great Lakes, like around Wisconsin and Ontario, there's communities there. You go into Quebec, which is right above like Vermont, there's going to be pockets and communities of it there. And then anywhere northern where there's a little bit of a history or a First Nations tie-in as well, it's happening there. So for the amount of dog sledding in the world that's happening, I'd say a lot of it's happening in Canada.
Okay. Dang, that's cool. Yeah, some of these accounts have been pretty fun to see what they're doing. But, well, Brian and Emily, thank you guys so much for jumping on the podcast here. Brian, welcome back for round 2. Emily, welcome to the show. So thanks for jumping on here with us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Why don't you, Brian, just give us a little recap on yourself real quick, and then we'll jump over to Emily, let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the marketing coordinator for Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, originally from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, now stationed in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, where we make the product and ship the product all over the world now. Been in the Maritimes on the East Coast for 15 years, got a dog, got a wife, got a son, got a love for being outdoors in the woods and, slinging kibble and talking dog food for people. So yeah, no, it's a good life.
Slinging kibble and talking dog food. I love it. What
I could have said talking shit because poop comes up almost as much as the food does, but I thought I'd save more colorful comments for the end. But here we go.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll ease our way into it. And real quick note for the listeners: if you want a full breakdown on what the Maritime is, or Maritimes, am I saying that right? Maritimes. Mm-hmm. Go back to the Inukshuk, the first episode Brian and I did, because Brian did a fantastic job of breaking down the providences of Canada and the Maritime,
specifically how it relates to hockey teams.
Yes. So if you want a full in-depth recap, go back to the previous episode, and you can get educated on that. Emily, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
I'm Emily Corey. I am the current president of Corey Nutrition. Corey Nutrition Company, the company that owns Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. We are a family-owned business. So my father started the company in 82. We've been making dog food since the 90s, and myself and two of my brothers are generation 2 that are just coming into the business now. So my role with Inukshuk is more on the nutrition and new product development side, but you'll see me floating around trade shows and stuff from time to time.
Very cool. Very cool. I saw the last name Corey. I was like, I bet you're okay, related. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of see this company kind of really develop, right? Since, I mean, you were a kid probably.
Yeah, it's been dinner table talk, and I've done everything from slinging dog food bags to answering the phone. So
that's awesome.
It's been a journey.
And if we still need to like sticker 2,000 bags in a pinch, Emily's in there throwing the labels on, all hands on deck if need be.
I wish it weren't true, but
you're like, yeah, it's actually how it goes sometimes.
Sometimes we are an adaptable company, right? Our rules are we're one team.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Role fluid.
How big is the team right now of staff?
Around 50.
50. Okay. You guys are growing. That's awesome. Well, we are going to jump into a bunch of more about the company and the food and formulas, nutrition, all that kind of stuff here. Brian, I'm not going to, let us go any further without talking a little smack on your Penguins, but they did beat up on my Avs last night.
Well, they
did. And Crosby had a ridiculous goal. So I will cheers you to that.
I can't believe he's still holding up as much. He's not living in the generation like Gretzky did, where people would avoid him. He's been hunted and pinned to those boards so many times, and the stuff he still manages to pull off is impressive, man.
I mean, he's only like 37. He's got a lot more good years of hockey ahead of him.
In modern NHL years, though, when you started when you were 18,
right?
That's
God, that's a long time he's been in the league and doing.
We're older than we like to admit. That's the way things
happen. I remember when he got drafted. I'm like, oh, getting old here.
Yeah. But I'm sorry that your team lost, but I'm glad we're the ones to have brought you down. It's good to happen every now and again. But no, Emily, to be honest with you, with the kid, I haven't been paying attention or tuning in much to sports at all, because if I keep my eyes open past 10 p.m. I'm doing really
10 p.m. Man, you got me beat by an hour. I'm in bed at 9. I'm like, I'm done.
I would love to be in bed at 9, but the kitchen's a mess and the bottles aren't prepped. So
gosh,
we'll get better.
Yeah, no, I hear it, man. I hear it. Emily, hockey. You have a team. Do you have an alliance to any NHL teams?
Unfortunately not. Well,
no.
Unfortunately not. I'll let you guys handle the band.
Well, this has been a short podcast, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed the conversation.
Two worst Canadians in history.
Take her off.
What kind of Canadians am I talking to?
We vary, okay? We come in all shapes and sizes. Our teachers used to say the difference between Canada and the States. I don't know if you guys ever heard this. We were a tossed salad and you guys were a melting pot. Because the whole part of like becoming an American citizen is like, you got to know the history, you got to take the test, you got to, kind of fall in. This is how we do it here. In Canada, we're just like, yeah, okay, cool. Sure. You have a spot in Toronto there where all your stores and markets will go, and everyone else kind of come in. So it was always tossed salad versus melting pot. Did that metaphor ever come up in your educational system?
I know, but it's totally making sense though. I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally see that.
Well, and things have changed and they're different everywhere now. But I was just wondering what kind of. I'm sure there's a lot we can go endlessly about the differences between the educational systems, probably. Yeah. But I don't think that's what people do necessarily.
That's probably why they are not. Yeah, that's not what they're coming here for.
We'll save that for a campfire talk.
Oh my gosh, Emily, do you run any dogs right now of your own?
Nope. I have two. Nice. I have 2 border collies, but we're more weekend warriors than anything else. Do a little bit of running, but not.
Okay, I was gonna say, have you gotten into any of the Caney Cross stuff? I know Brian and I talked about a little Caney Cross last time, but
not yet.
Running buddies.
Running buddies, yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, we've got so much woods around too that, like, with your 2 dogs, particularly, where one wants to hurt and bite the other one, and the other one wants to correct them for doing that, they're way better off leash. So right? Running in the woods, yes, but they're way better off leash because they're literally trying to herd you while tethered to you. I've experimented with Emily's dogs before. It's fun. It's entertaining, at least.
I bet.
Boring.
Oh, Brian, I did. Since we talked last, I did pick up and you sent me some harnesses from some companies you recommended. And so I picked up that, I think it's non-stop dog wear harness.
Yeah.
And it was a life changer.
It's so much fun. Yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Got the bungee lead, and so hooked that up to my bike. Smoother ride
on a mountain bike is my favorite. Yeah. Daniel, who works in our office as well, he's got a little husky mix, and she's just about to turn 1, I think. So he's got the harness and the whole setup, and he's just been testing the waters a little bit. And he's like, even this little 40-pound dog, like you feel her pull when you're going. So you know, personal bests are skyrocketing for him.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping to take her for a run and remember what it's like to run uphill without feeling like you were dying, which is how it currently feels, because the snow is so heavy and deep right now that anything uphill, you just but
I can only
still
imagine.
Good.
That's awesome. Well, very cool, guys. Great catching up with you both. We'll kind of jump into some Inukshuk's business here. The first thing I kind of want to bring up is more so just an observation. I did kind of a longer story series, probably about a month ago, maybe a little bit less, just on dog food, kind of polling some of the audience who follow the show. And kind of two of the big things that were just observation of my own, of seeing the story polls and results and questions people wrote in, was the cups per day that people are feeding on Inukshuk and off Inukshuk. Again, you kind of hear about, we've talked about the Inukshuk, you can feed a lot less, the higher calorie density, all that good stuff. And it was really interesting to see of people on different brands of feeding so much more. And it was just kind of an eye opener of like, wow, it kind of backs up what I already know about Inukshuk, what you guys have been putting out as well. And then the other thing was the concern. Lots of people wrote in about concerns with chicken meal, rice, and corn in their
rice.
dog food.
I don't hear often. We hear chicken and corn often. Rice. We don't hear rice often, so that's a little surprising.
I know. So I was kind of want to toss it to you guys. Have you been hearing this kind of same stuff? Observations, thoughts around kind of those two things that I've been hearing from the audience.
Emily, why don't you take cups per day, and then I'll talk about chicken and corn.
Okay, so yeah, well, I mean, the thing about the Inukshuk is it was designed to be the highest energy dog food on the market, right? It was built for sled dogs that are pulling all day long and burning thousands upon thousands of calories while doing so. So with those guys that are up in the woods and moving dogs, they need that density and that food with that caloric intake that doesn't weigh a lot, right? It slows them down. So, you get more into your dog with less volume, highest energy dog food, meaning 720 kilocalories per cup. It's pretty dense. Yeah. Even that's the 32-32. The 30-25 is still, 573, Brian? Right in that range there, which is still higher than 580. Yeah, right around there, where it's still higher than what's on the market. But it means you get to feed less, right? And if you have dogs that don't like to eat, that's huge. Or if dogs that can't maintain weight, that's huge. If you have to pick up off your dog, that can be huge. So
if
it
you have
is
lots of dogs to feed.
Lots of dogs to feed. That's huge. So, it's one of those things where being a food and a brand that was specifically designed for these working dogs and for professionals that have all of those dogs, it's a perk and a benefit that other manufacturers can't really provide.
It was like the original market problem that was brought to us that led to the inception of the product.
Yeah.
Because as I think I probably said on the pod, we make commercial fish food as well, like the best salmon feed around. So there's a guy coming in buying a metric ton of salmon feed we knew he didn't have fish. And we said, why are you doing this? And he's like, well, this is really high protein, really high fat, and it's a lot cheaper and weighs less than meat. So it's part of my feeding regimen for my sled dogs. Well, we can make you dog food that is even better for them. That accomplishes the same thing, right? So it truly was the first here's a problem. There's not enough calories in dog food. I want to feed for a musher, and then you just extrapolate 20 years and 5 formulas, from all of that. And that was the first solution that we came to market to solve was let's get the cups per day down.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And for sled dog, bird dog owners, I have a few dogs myself. Other people have 6, 7, a whole kennel of dogs. And so, like you were saying, Brian, it makes a big difference when you're able to, my Brittany's, they're on about a cup and a half a day. Summertime, even maybe a little bit less. And that's perfect for them. Maintain weight, energy, all that stuff. Hunting season, I bump it up a little bit. So from an economic standpoint too, saves me a ton because I'm not blowing through 4 or 5 cups a day. Right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We almost 100% of our customers prefer paying less for stuff we found over the years. Yeah.
Almost 100%.
Well, there's that one weirdo who just wanted to tip me. I don't know what that was about.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, Brian, why don't you kind of unpack the thing I kind of kept hearing about, chicken meal, corn, rice, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Hearing, something similar?
Yeah, certain ingredients have bad reputations, or customers want to avoid them. And sometimes those reasons are legitimate, and sometimes there's a little bit of either misinformation or the understanding or the context realizing that there's a variety of quality when we're talking about these ingredients. So there's good chicken and there's bad chicken, right? A lot of formulas that are inexpensive will use chicken because it's an inexpensive protein relative to like beef or lamb or salmon or whatever, right? But the problem is with those formulas, it's not necessarily the chicken, although it could be. They could be buying pretty low grade chicken products, but it's also the rest of their products. To make inexpensive food, you have to save expenses. You have to put stuff that's not that good in there sometimes. So the sum of all these parts are most likely the problem oftentimes, but because chicken is the number one ingredient on the back of the bag, and it can be costly and expensive to figure out really what's going on, when the ultimate answer is you just need to go to a better food with ingredients that are better for your dog. So we use chicken, but we use human grade chicken that we use for our chicken meals. And we're really proud of our farmers and our sourcing of chicken. It's great. And most dogs have no problem digesting chicken. But you take, a chicken byproduct that's getting put into an inferior meal with a bunch of other ingredients that are maybe not so hot. Well, now you've got, chicken being blamed for, again, maybe something that's a little bit deeper than just the birds themselves.
Sure.
Corn is kind of similar. It's used. We use whole grain corn that we grind in-house ourselves as an energy source in our formulas. And we're really proud of our corn. And most dogs have no problem on corn. But corn can be used to like fortify protein levels or in larger amounts than is good with, again, maybe some other inferior quality products in a formula that's not really performance or quality driven, but it's, trying to do its best for whatever market it's trying to, capture that audience of. So, there's a variety of these things. Now, like Dog Food Advisor, a website that I don't want to poo-poo on, but
sure,
it's good for getting a quick glimpse of something, but it's not a great context provider, right? And we don't always have the opportunity to maybe broach this subject in this depth with everyone who's just scanning on the website or is hearing from somebody else or has had an experience with chicken or corn that was bad. So knowing all that, we, developed our marine formulas, which take chicken and corn out of the equation, highlight our fish that we have in such awesome and like really good quality supply of out here on the East Coast. So now we have a seafood forward option with different grains. So, so we're just trying to eliminate barriers for dogs to get on and benefit from the formulas.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. The big thing I hear with like chicken sometimes is, an allergy, like a chicken allergy someone's discovered. And then the corn the corn one, sometimes I'll hear people say like, it's an inflammatory or it's, do you ever hear that? Like people are like, it's a vet said it's inflammatory, so it must be bad for my dog.
Not that inflammatory is not really what or at least I haven't heard it much, Brian. I don't know if you have about inflammatory. Okay. I think it's been largely used and abused, and like Brian was saying, overused, and sometimes that's where your protein's coming from, when really when you've got performance animals, that should probably be coming from an animal source.
Sure.
And stuff like that. It gets the finger pointed at it a lot. But the reason that it was originally incorporated into the Inukshuk diets was because it's incredibly well researched. When used in a proper source and as a carbohydrate, it's highly digestible, over the 90%. And higher than 90%, and it's a good ingredient when it's used properly. It's just when it's not used improperly or the quality isn't high, of course it's less digestible and etc. But the way that we use it is purely as a carbohydrate source.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Catch us up a little bit before we go any further. Catch us up on Inukshuk over the last year or so. Brian, might have been a little over a year since we talked last. What's the business been like? How have things been growing, developing at Inukshuk?
Yeah, well, we're full swing into trade show season right now, which has been great. Getting to hit the road and meet a lot of new clients and put ourselves in front of a lot more people face to face. So Emily got to go to Pheasant Fest. That was in Minnesota. Nice. What was that? February?
Yeah,
I think February.
February.
20, 30,000 people walking through there. And it was awesome because, we used to go to these shows, not that show, but other shows, maybe 5-10 years ago, and you do a lot of introducing. Now when we go to shows, and that show particularly, it was a lot of like, hey, we've heard of Inukshuk. Yeah. We're on Inukshuk. This is great. So there's a lot of people where we weren't introducing ourselves, but they were like, really appreciative of having the opportunity to ask these kind of questions and find out what it's all about and what makes it different. So the overwhelmingly positive response from there, the hunting community in general, we've switched a lot of kennels, board and trained kennels, strings of dogs onto this food. So being able to meet, and actually, Kent and Brian that you introduced us to, and David Stover from Fit Point Bird Dogs, some of these connections and people that we're learning from and really benefiting from having like a working relationship with has been really rewarding. Yeah. So awesome to hit the road and strengthen some bonds that are coming from new places. I just got back from Vegas at a police canine conference and talking to a lot of officers that are feeding the food in the field. Hearing pain points, hearing positives, hearing tactics. Again, so many learning and opportunities to interact with people that that are out there and that are feeding our food. But time is just so precious these days, right? Everyone's so busy. So trade shows and trade show season is great. We get energized, and then it propels us to figure out the next 6 months of the year once they kind of wind down. Although this year we've spread them out, and we're kind of going. Yeah, you're still going hard right until fall. Anyhow, so things are good. And the wholesale program and the trusted reseller program are both really, really taking off.
That's awesome.
We got a lot of net news. We got a lot of more people incoming, and they're coming already kind of sold on the product, which is nice because a lot of our people are talking to other people. People like your word of mouth. The reason why you sponsor a podcast or make a relationship with someone in a certain field is because your opinion and your actual proof in the performance of your animals and the look of your animals does more than we can ever do from our mouths directly, right? So making those connections is awesome. So all systems go, man. Marine 16 just landed on Chewy. Resellers are growing. We're happy.
That's fantastic. Are you guys still selling a lot direct, or is a lot of it Chewy, pallet orders? Like, can people only order?
Kind of growing. We focus on direct because selling a pallet to a customer and then having them resell affords us a lot of benefits. And there's not anyone else really focusing on that need, catering to that need. It's a pretty specific lane, direct wholesale pallets of performance dog food. But there's a lot of people in that lane, so there's a lot that we can do here. And focus again is kind of, if we had to summarize how we're going to grow successfully in a year, Emily, I would say focus. And so
yeah, I've been seeing a lot more of the pallet order kind of stuff. Someone will want to order a pallet and they get some people from their area to go in on a pallet together.
Yeah. Chewy gets it to any door that we need to, and our Canadian online website does the same over here, which is great. We don't want anyone who wants a Inukshuk not to be able to get it. But there's so many people out there with so many dogs on hand that really need an option for this huge group of dogs that we're really happy being able to provide that service, and with a product that we feel is just dialed in, ready for these dogs to succeed on.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things I thought would be interesting, either you can answer this question. One of the things I've noticed about Inukshuk is, again, compared to other dog foods I've seen in the past or used, when you open up a bag, there are virtually no crumbs or dust in those bags. Can you explain why that is? Because to me, it's fascinating. Every time I open a bag, I'm like, there's no crumbs, there's no dust. Like, why is that?
How the product's made. The way that we make dog food is different than how most companies would do it. So, given our roots in aquaculture, you have to think of what we were feeding before. So we were feeding animals that were underwater, right? So some of those animals feed at the bottom, some of them feed at the top, some of them feed in the water column. And so the density of that product really matters, and whether it floats and whether it sinks. And I also have very short digestive tracts, and you're dealing with farmers who know how big their fish are, how much food goes in, and then how big their fish are when they come out, right? Sure. So there's a food conversion ratio there. So when you're dealing with oils and waters, they also separate. So all those things, keeping all those in mind, the way that we source our ingredients, as Brian mentioned, is we source them in whole form and we grind them all up in-house to the consistency of flour. So it's super, super fine and your particle size is really small. Now, what that does from a nutrition perspective is it gives you really small particle sizes where the digestive enzymes can get more out of them because it's more ground up, right? Like we chew our food to grind things up so that we can get more food out of them during the transit time. So it allows from a nutritional perspective, but it also allows for that really clean, crisp kibble that we make. The second thing we do is with the fat infusion. So we use a vacuum. Most companies would use a conditioning chamber, which is, you cook your kibble, you put fat on the kibble, you move things around, maybe use a little bit of heat, and that's coated in fat, right? But ours is an actual vacuum. So kibble goes in, fat goes in, things get mixed up, and then we suck all the air out of the vacuum and slowly let it back in. And what that does is it takes all of those fats from the outside of the kibble to the inside of the kibble, right? So like for that perspective, that's how we can get higher fat than anyone else in the marketplace.
By putting it back in, right? Slowly
filling
putting it back.
It's like filling all those little pores in a kibble with fat, right? Wow. So usually they'd be filled with air, and ours are filled with fat. So it's the same thing. Like if you put our kibble in water, it'll sink because it's denser than the water because it doesn't have the air particles in it.
Right.
It's a nice, dense, clean kibble. And so you don't have any bag dust because of our cooking process, because we've got finer particles that are more glued together, and because there's no air in it. So it's all filled with fat, and it just makes this nice, dense, little nutrient rich packet for the dog to consume.
Jeez. That's some science right there.
Anyone who's like dealt with a lot of dog food and they're like, why? Well, what about your shit? I don't care. What? Show me why. And you just put a little in their hand and go, oh yeah, this is good stuff.
Yeah. You can feel it.
It's dry. It's not oily. It's heavy. It's substantial. They're hard to break.
Yeah.
So anyone who's dealt with a lot of dog foods and been through the woes of finding a good dog food, again, my job is not to sell the food. It's just to give opportunities or make opportunities for the food to sell itself. You put it in someone's hand and they can tell it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned it's hard to break. I don't think I've ever seen a broken piece of kibble ever.
It happens very seldomly. I'm
sure.
It's cool. Yeah. No dust in the bottom of the bag.
Yeah. That's the most fascinating part to me. Cause again, the typical, you're gonna have crumbs and dust and all this crap everywhere.
Yeah. And if you're buying a pallet of it, you don't want a third of your pallet to be
exactly. A pounded dust, exactly. Oh, very cool. Well, this whole episode, we're going to kind of go through some different, basically just questions for you on the food, some things I've heard, whether it's from online, people reaching out to me directly, and again, things maybe you have heard as well. But one of the other things that I've heard quite a bit of, some questions on why not glucosamine in the formulas. Can you guys talk a little bit more about that?
Yep. So we didn't add glucosamine or chondroitin to our formulas.
Thanks for pronouncing that, by the way, because I did not know how to pronounce it.
I got you.
That's why I left it out of the question. I was like, I'm not going to look like an idiot.
So
sound like an idiot. It's an audio.
Exactly.
Good on looks.
No, okay. So we do not have glucosamine or chondroitin in our foods. Okay. Couple of reasons for that. There is a little bit there, but it will come in naturally from the animal protein sources that we're using. Okay. But people add glucosamine and chondroitin for joint health. And in order to get a clinical level where you might see any sort of actual benefit directly from the food, the levels have to be quite high and would vary animal to animal to a certain extent. So we haven't approached that because we don't feel as though that's necessarily the best cost cost increase for the food. The thing that we do, though, that also helps a lot with joint health is add a lot of fish oils, which are rich in omega-3s, which do also have a lot of joint health benefits, as well as coat health and a variety of other things. That's more the avenue that we've taken. Glucosamine and chondroitin are really easy to supplement as well. So if anybody really needs to have those, they're readily available.
Yeah. There's chewables, powders, all sorts of stuff that they could. And so is that, I think you mentioned cost. Is that would that be a pretty big jump in cost to be adding that to the formulas?
It can be. And the thing is, like, since every dog is different, getting it to a point where you're actually going to see some sort of actual relief directly from that, it's more, we view it as be more of a marketing initiative than it would be an actual functionality. Okay. And since this food has been designed for, a specific purpose of functionality, we don't necessarily add a lot of extra stuff in there just to have them on a label.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because you're saying they have to get so much glucosamine for it to be effective. Well, then you're going to have to feed a dog X amount more of food, right, to get that level of glucosamine. So that makes total sense.
We just don't need it. Yeah. We don't put anything in there that we don't need. Fillers and stuff like that are where your formula can really start to thin itself, you know what I mean? And other companies do it for various reasons. We're lucky that, Emily and her father have been making the decisions and trusting in the values and opinions of a smaller group of people, where there's not as much at stake except for our reputation, right? It's not millions of doors and stores, and like having a competition be at such a different scale than us really allows us to be quite a bit different. And those differences pretty much always benefit the formula and the customer in the long run.
And you guys are making all this in one facility, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have multiple facilities kind of producing this?
Nope, just ours.
Okay.
The Big Blue Stack. Big Blue production facility. It's one of the tallest buildings in Little Old Fredericton, probably at the top of our stack.
Okay.
Probably is.
I think a tall building around here is like five levels or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's a good facility. Come hunt some stuff down this way, and we'll take you for a tour and show you how the sausage is made. It's cool.
Oh, I love that. Are you guys, again, it seems like you guys have been growing really, really well. Are you guys starting to, capacity wise, are you still able to produce just as much as you need to right now? Are you starting to outgrow that space, or?
Well, the mill's is more efficient now than it's ever been, right, Em?
Yeah, it's yes, we've got lots of room. The nice thing about it is that there's lots of room for improvement too in our processes and getting things more streamlined as we grow. So yeah, nice. there's no risk of shortages anytime soon.
That's awesome. That's great. All right, next question. Switching between Inukshuk formulas, why is this? Again, I'm speaking from personal experience. I switched between the 2616 and then the 3025. Mm-hmm. Why is it such an easy process to be able to switch between formulas without upsetting the dog's stomachs? That's a big one. Because typically, if you're switching foods or something like that, it could be a month or longer process to really switch them. I've noticed I can switch my dogs really, really smoothly, no upset stomachs. Why is that such an easy process with Inukshuk?
I think a large part of it was intentional design, right? Like we organize our food by energy level, right? So a lot of brands will go, here's our puppy food, here's our adult food, and here's our senior food. Well, different puppies need different things, different adults need different things. So by doing it on an energy level and then plugging the dog into the most appropriate energy level, keeping an eye on that, and as their energy needs increase, well, our formulas increase in the certain things that will provide those energies, right? But because there's no fillers, quality ingredients in there, and a really tight production process, the dog's stomach can handle everything that we've put in there, because there's a lot of research on those ingredients that most dogs can handle these things, and we've got all the experience from it. So we know that that's true. When it comes to switching from like a lot of people, are like, oh, I'm looking for a new dog food. You would be new to me. Will my dog have a hard time transitioning from what they're eating? Well, depends on what they're eating. Sure. If they are really liking it and there's similar ingredients to our food, there's probably not going to be a problem. If their body really doesn't like it right now and you're switching for those reasons, well, then who cares if we're removing that from the system and they have a little bit of a time adjusting to this one and maybe leveling out over a week or two with some soft stool or maybe some nose up, experiences at the bowl, things like that. But for the most part, within the line, and even with our marine and our original formulas, multiple proteins and multiple grains and things are good for a dog. Their ability to digest and pull different things from these different sources is a positive, right? So sometimes people will be like, can I mix my marine 25 and 35 together if I have some? It's like, yeah, sure. That's your dog can handle some fish and handle some chicken. Don't worry too much about it. It's not too much. Sure. Their stomachs are more capable, and then sometimes I feel that we give them credit to, because again, market noise and personal and one-off experiences may be carrying more weight than they necessarily should. To be honest with you, most dogs could probably switch over to our formulas very quickly, and then within our brand even easier. Yeah. But we always err to the side of caution and say, add 25% every 2 days.
Yeah. If you're switching from an outside brand to,
Yeah. But again, it's the ingredient deck, and it's the intention to know that there's going to be a lot of scenarios where you go up and then maybe back down and then maybe back up. And then maybe you need to go like a couple steps down because of a situation where they're hard keeping for whatever reason. As long as you're following those guidelines and you understand that everything that we build is to a certain standard that's regulated, like the food is safe when you get the right one to the right dog, and their stomach's probably going to handle it okay. Yeah.
And just kind of to recap, so make sure our listeners are following. You're saying within the three original formulas, not including the marine right now, the ingredients are so similar that it's just really is it the calories that are really different? Like how much calories are in those foods essentially?
the calories are different, but the ingredient decks are the same. So the ingredient ratios change, but the actual decks are more or less seamless. Yeah.
Okay, and that's why it's a smooth transition. And then the same is true, I'm guessing, for the Marines, because I know you have 2 Marine formulas now, right?
Yes. Yep. Same thing.
Okay. Same deal. Okay. And the Marine, you talk a little bit about, that's been out for, about 2 years now, maybe a little more, a little less.
No, I guess Marine 25 is 2 years now, isn't it?
Okay.
Pretty close. Yeah.
We launched it in November. So was it 2 years old in November?
I think we soft launched it in the summer and then launched it when it went live on Chewy, I think in November.
Was it Marine 25 the first one, and then 16?
Yeah.
Okay. Just messed up everyone's timelines and talk a little bit about the process and releasing a Marine formula. Was it because people saying, "Hey, I can't do chicken"? Was that why Marine was created? Talk a little bit more about that.
You want to go, Em? Want me to go?
Yeah, sure, I can take it. So, we were discussing all this kind of stuff and barriers to entry, really. So, the things that we've talked about a little bit already is there's chicken, you have corn, you have wheat. Pick an ingredient that somebody has some sort of aversion to, or the dog has some sort of aversion to. And, we were discussing what our next moves were. And it just came down to, look, we have a really ready access of fish here. If our customers don't like chicken, some of them, we can make a new formula that doesn't include these ingredients that are more controversial, because we want people to try our product. We really do believe in what we do around here, and we believe in formulation integrity. And if the chicken doesn't work for you, here's another option. It's same quality, same fat levels, same protein levels. Sure. Everything else is seamless. It's just you've got these issues with these ingredients. We got another one for you. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Brian.
Well, I would say that seafood, like we have some of the best seafood in the world right in our backyard as well, right? Sure. Yep. And there's a lot of positives from, the polyunsaturated fatty acids that exist in seafood-based proteins. So, if the chicken and corn thing wasn't as big of an issue of it, we would probably be making Marine 5 years down the road. Because we'd be like, okay, guys, we need to grow, we need to innovate still. What are some things we can bring to the market where maybe there's a hole or there's a solution we can provide? Sure. And, some people just prefer their dogs on fish for the coat or they're tired of buying salmon oil or whatever. So they're looking for a salmon source. So, the need for removing barriers of entry, coupled with the fact that we have the best seafood in the world, literally in our backyard, it was a no-brainer once we got that kind of out on paper looking like that, right? So I would add that for sure, because it's good stuff. And herring is nice because it's an oil, it's like a sardine, right? Like a big sardine. It's an oily fish. Sure. So people don't love eating it necessarily, but it's got so much of that amazing fish oil in it, and there's so much of it available because it's not like salmon, where it's being on the human consumption market as well. So like we're in just an amazing spot to take advantage of that wonder ingredient.
Yeah, that's super cool. This is probably maybe a really, really dumb question. So you have like 26, 16, 30, 25. Why are the Marines Marine 25 and Marine 16?
So people don't get shipped the wrong bag of food. Because we shorthand, right? And we're all busy. So if I say, hey, I need a pallet of Marine 3025 over there. No problem. One pallet of Marine and one pallet of 3025, or one pallet of 3025 because they forgot the Marine part, right? So just opportunity for error increases. That's awesome. So they are the same protein analogs and they're meant to be partners with our original formulas, but we couldn't call them the same thing because you know how it would go.
Just a little more.
The universe would make us pay.
That question's been bugging me for a long time. I'm like, why are these one's just 25 or just 16? I'm like,
purely for
the fat level was more important for the energy than the protein level. But I'm Marine because it's fish and just to make it easy on ourselves. Yeah,
that's awesome. And then one more maybe dumb question. I don't know because I don't use Marine. But is there corn or rice in those formulas too?
Rice, no corn.
Brown rice, whole oats, and barley are the grains. So real quick, because we get this question all the time, why would I choose Marine over this? If you have joint, skin, coat, olfactory issues that you want to either, encourage the best scenario possible, or there's things you want to correct, Marine's got more of those omegas in there, slightly higher levels. You're probably going to go there. If your dog likes seafood better than other proteins, then go there. There's different protein set and different grain set, but then everything else is almost, they measure up to be really functional analogs.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. No, yeah. Again, I've heard a lot of people be like, "Oh, I just don't want corn. I just don't want corn." I'm like, okay, well, now it's good to know. There's actually no corn in.
Here's Marine. It's $10 more a bag. We love you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, couple more listener questions I got from folks over the last couple months. One, does the extra fat, and they're talking about Inukshuk specifically, does the extra fat content hurt the liver over time? Is this something you guys know about?
So I was reading this question, and I'd love to know where this listener was coming from this, because when it comes to high fat, we typically hear about pancreatitis, and a concern there, not so much on the liver side of things. The pancreas creates digestive enzymes, and sometimes if the dog is used to a certain level of fat and then you decide you're going to give it the whole leftover turkey after dinner or something, that spike in fat level can cause an acute pancreatitis. And there is a chronic form as well. And usually if people have concerns, it's about that rather than the liver itself. And that's not an actual
I think that's
concern.
Just a layman's misunderstanding of which organ we're actually talking about. We know that one of these organs is processing this, and I think liver
just
gets
something maybe
more. Yeah, we can't all be as smart as Emily.
Brian, I have my moments too, but no, I think that is where it's coming from, and it's not. One thing I will say there too is another pancreatitis can arise from rancid fats, which might be the concern as well. And we use a lot of things to prevent this from happening. But if you ever have a punctured bag of dog food, or you have something that you're going to eat and it smells like paint, that means it's rancid and it shouldn't be fed to an animal. It's a very distinct smell when fats oxidize and become rancid, and it smells chemical rather than natural. And that's a rancid fat, and that can cause pancreatitis. But that's rare and not common really in the pet food market. And anyway, it has to be exposed to oxygen for a period of time for that to happen. So we will occasionally hear just about fat levels and concerns about pancreatitis, but that is not a founded thing. Their fats are not rancid, and a higher level. The thing about dogs too is so humans, if we're going to go out and do some exercise, we carb load, right? Like we're going to run a marathon, we're going to eat a whole bunch of pasta, we're going to go run that marathon and kill it. That's a theory anyways. Dogs will use carbohydrates to a certain extent, kind of to get the engine going, so to speak. But they will, if they're doing any sort of sustained activity, they will use fats, free fatty acids, which are from fats in their diet, as a ready source of energy, as opposed to using carbohydrates. So the whole objective here is we're providing a whole variety of these fats for these dogs to eat, and having a higher level means there's more ready energy for them to consume and use, especially polyunsaturated forms. So there's no direct link in between feeding a high-fat diet every day and pancreatitis. And I don't know anything about that specific issues with the liver, but if your listener does have one, we're here to help. So
I'd be curious to hear.
I think the big thing is
about that.
If your dog's gaining weight and they're over their ideal weight, you're either feeding too much, or maybe you should kick back down a formula, right? So just knowing what your dog's weight should be, if they're expelling that energy, because again, everything is pretty regulated, right? There's not a lot of free floating room for certain things to safeguard these dogs as much as possible, through AFCO and other means like that. So, if our feeding calculations are for, an assumed level of activity. And if your dog's gaining weight from what our feeding guidelines are suggesting, maybe they're just not as active. So dial it back a bit, and just monitor that. But that's going to be the thing that happens that you're going to notice. And it's very manageable if you're keeping an eye on it, especially as you're switching over to the formula. Once you get in a cycle and a rhythm, you're good. You'll know if it's working or not, kind of thing. So if you're a new customer and you're worried about, is this too fatty for my dog? Just feed what we recommend. Keep an eye on the weight. And if it's creeping up, feed a little less. If you're like, oh, that's a measly portion because our food's so dense, well, just go down to the formula below. You can feed a little bit of a bigger meal and you're good. So there's really, certainly for the trying period and the time where it'll take
there's ways to
know if it's working or not.
Yeah, there's ways to adjust it a little bit and have some options.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to be destroying their organs for 8 months and you won't know, and then all of a sudden, something horrible happens. Like, horrible things happen that are health related, surely, but that liver panic is something that we're trying to tamp down a little bit, because again, there's a lot to understand with this stuff if you start asking questions and pulling threads, and we know that information is not as always easy to get from sources that you might trust or have access to. So that's why podcasts are so great.
Right. Exactly. Get smart people like you on to explain all this technical stuff.
Let the record show he pointed to Emily when he said that.
I did.
No, but you have a point there, Brian. Like, feeding guidelines are just guidelines. And with your largest concern, it should be that your dog will gain too much weight on this food because it is denser. And if your dog does start to gain weight, you have to pull back, because they are just guidelines. Not every dog is the same, just like not every human is the same.
And then, it's
just a starting point.
Yeah. I was going to say, Brian, I think you mentioned like they're really activity level based. And so if your dog is, I'm just going to say, a couch potato pet, like, probably not a good idea to feed the top fat level food, right? Like,
honestly,
you have to really balance.
Exactly. Not the top level, but there's a lot of couch potatoes that are loving their 26-16 or the Marine 16. It's a good foundational formula. It's a pretty versatile formula in that sense. And I would put that up against any of the, best-selling pet branded, like house pet branded formulas, truly. And we don't market that because we're the Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, and we want to attract professional canine people and sell pallets of food. People who typically have a Shih Tzu don't need a pallet of food, but we're very...
They're not eating 4 cups a day.
I mean, some of these dogs will take like 5 months to a bag, and they're like, "Can I freeze this?" I'm like, "Yeah, you actually can freeze it and just use a fifth of it at a time." So
you can really freeze it.
Yeah, you can freeze it, and then when it thaws out, there might be a little condensation that develops on the food, but if it's being fed fairly quickly, you're okay.
But that is
the thing with storing is just steady temperature more than like worrying about too hot in the sun's no good, but like warm is okay and cold is okay as long as they're steady. And then when you open a fresh bag, no worries there, kind of thing. But you can freeze the food if you need to.
Okay.
For our Shih Tzu listeners.
Yeah. For all the people that have a massive freezer, they can just wheel a pallet into.
And a bunch of chihuahuas.
Right. Yeah. Chihuahua farm. All right, another question here. Is Inukshuk coming out with a puppy-specific formula anytime soon?
Well,
Brian, I saw a hard head shake no.
Well, I can let Emily explain why, and it's more of a semantics thing than it is will we make a formula that's good for puppies, right, Em?
It's semantics, yeah. So the way that the regulations work are for AFCO, you can have foods that are all life stages for large breed puppies, including large breed puppies, foods that are for all life stages for only small breed puppies, or adult maintenance. There's only really 3 classifications of foods. Things that you see branded as puppy are all maintenance, all life stages is how the actual AFCO is. And then the puppy just indicates that it is suitable for puppies. Our 26-16 and Marine 16 are both puppy suitable diets and designed for that. Actually, all of our diets are really designed for all life stages, but the way that they're branded is different. So we took the approach of using energy levels. So 26-16, all life stage diet, all sizes of dogs can be fed from the second the dog has weaned up until the moment it kicks the can without any particular issues. But if you need a higher energy level, you can go up or down from there. So it is semantics.
So I mean,
kind
of cutting to the chase. Like other dog foods out there,
is our puppy formula. That's cut to the chase.
Really. And other brands, is it really more of a marketing thing? Probably of like, hey, we have a puppy brand, because you're saying the AFCO standard is they kind of have to apply to all stages. Yeah,
think of it like if you go into the grocery store or CVS or something, and you have a headache, you look for the Tylenol that says headache, right? And that's the one you buy. It's that simple. It's like people go into pet food stores and there's a bazillion brands and it's overwhelming. And the one that says puppy, I have a puppy. That's how the marketing is done.
Okay.
It's easier to understand than this is for all life stage, and you go, well, I got an old senior dog that's still suitable. Yeah, it is. It's designed that way. But the thing that puppies need is they need a little bit more protein, a few more amino acids, a few more minerals and vitamins than what adults do. Because once you're an adult, you're not growing anymore. You're not putting on any more mass. So like adult maintenance is a different standard, but anything that is, if you flip the bag over and read the AFCO statement, if it says all life stages, it really does mean all life stages. It is a puppy food.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. Once our kids are off milk, what do they start eating? What you're making for dinner. Exactly. Right. So it's just a matter of like, again, amount and, quality as much as possible.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Love that, guys. Thank you. All right. A couple more here. It's kind of a longer one. I will read this. I am in the Southeast and concerned about my dogs getting overheated easier on the higher protein options. Have you heard of this before, or is this just a wives' tale?
No, this is something that is a concern in the hunting community particularly, because there's a lot of hunting in hot areas, obviously, and we don't want dogs to overheat. So sometimes people say like, oh, that food runs hot. And whenever someone says that to me, I go, what do you mean? Because our food is actually, it's higher protein and higher fat, but it's much easier to digest than most foods. So digestion is a process, and that process kicks off heat, body heat. We keep body heat down typically. So I don't get there's a phrase out there, and the concern doesn't connect. Now, dogs that, are working in hot climates, keeping the body temperature down is good. But one thing that we always say, people that kind of comes tandem with this question is, can I float your food in water so that I know that if my dog's about to go have a hot day, I can get as much water in him as possible, and he's not that interested in it unless there's food in it. Can I do this? And the answer is yes, but it's not what we recommend as your first option. So because there's no air in our food, sometimes people are pouring water on food to make it softer, right? Okay. Ours doesn't really get softer. Like Emily said, it kind of sinks, so it's not going to solve that problem for you. Yeah. And then if you think of a dog, lapping up their food in water, well, they're not going to be chewing it as much. It's going to be going straight down. So you're losing the benefit from the abrasion on the teeth and gums for any cleaning that the food can help assist in, which is the main way dogs clean their teeth. But then when it hits the stomach, it's surrounded by water and unchewed kibble. So even though our kibble is ground down to a powder and is really easy once those stomach enzymes start doing their thing, chewed food with some water afterwards is a better scenario for digestion than a whole stomach full of water and unchewed food, right? So because you want your dog to have an easier time digesting and you want them to have as small a meal as possible before a big run out in the field, our food actually, if I have to use the broken terminology, it runs cool. It's high protein and it's high fat, but it's really, really digestible. So our food's not making your dog going to be hotter in the field doing their thing. So I want further understanding on that term, and maybe I misunderstand it because there's other elements that come into it running hot that I don't quite grasp yet. So if you get feedback from this, I want it, because I talk to a lot of hunters.
The one word that meant is, Emily, you might know the answer to this, but he said overheat easier on the higher protein options. Is there a thought out there maybe, again, I'm reading into this question a little bit too, more protein equals your dog's going to run hotter? Is that a thing or no?
I think the perception is that the higher protein is harder to break down there, and there's more than what they may need, and therefore it creates more heat. I'm with Brian in that I've never fully grasped what that concept means. I will say, if you're running dogs, especially day after day, you do need to have a good level of protein in there for muscle maintenance. And that is also important. So you don't want to sacrifice too much on that side either if you're actually running dogs. But clarity on that, if you have it, we would love to get that.
Yes.
And I'd be that guy, that meme, the guy sitting behind the table. My sign would read, "Inukshuk runs cool, prove me wrong." I want to talk about it. I'm here.
All right, someone please make that.
Yeah.
Brian, we need a little bobblehead of you, and we'll stick that up there.
You know what? We've got a marketing team. We're on it.
Perfect. Aren't you the head of that marketing team?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make someone else do that.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, that's good. Listener, if you wrote that question in, would love to hear maybe even more context.
Yeah, please, because we're honestly not.
I'd love to hear more about that.
We want to serve this community as best as possible, and we want to know these concerns. That's why we're here. And there's a lot of hunting dogs on our food now, and I would say exponential growth in the last few years in this demographic. So any understanding that your community can help us build is more beneficial for all the dogs. Yeah. Full stop.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Another one here, feeding recommendations and cost per bag. Guessing this is all online, but you want to expand a little bit on maybe your thoughts around feeding recommendations and costs and all that?
Emily, you take feeding recommendations and I'll take cost per bag. So like how do we reach our feeding recommendations and that kind of stuff?
There you go.
Imagine, right, Will?
Yeah, we'll go with it.
Okay. Sorry, I cut you off. Go.
No. No, they are all available on our website, and we have a calculator there that can map out at least how long a bag would last a dog based on the formula as well as the size of the dog.
It also tells them how many calories per day they need, which is a helpful piece of information too, which a lot of people don't realize. So I would really check out that feeding calculator. That's underneath
really
the formulas
nice.
tab. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're calculated for active adult dogs or in case of the 2616 and the Marine 16 or extended feeding guidelines that you may get from us. That's calculated based on the requirements of the dog at any particular life stage. So. Or size. Like Brian already mentioned, they are just recommendations though. Like when somebody is transitioning on, we recommend that they start towards the lower end of the feeding guidelines. It is a denser kibble than what they would be used to. Sure. But it's at the end of the day, if your dog needs more calories, it's more food. If the dog needs less calories, it's less food, or it's transition up a formula or down a formula, depending on what you need. I don't know what else we can add to that.
Yeah, that's great. The feeding calculator, I would say, is a really, really nice tool. I've poked around that a little bit, and that's a really
just
nice
to add on. If you're a breeder or you have different age puppies, we do have a document, our extended feeding guideline, which covers all formulas in all life stages. We don't put it on the back of the bag because it's too big. It's a spreadsheet. But it's a spreadsheet that anybody wants it can have it. So email inukshukpro@corey.ca or reach me on socials and I can get you that extended feeding guideline too. Cause sometimes there's like a large breed puppy who's going to graduate to 30-25 earlier than a fully grown dog, smaller dog would. So what do I feed for the growing stages? We do have that information available, but it's too much to look at in any one place online or on the back of a bag. So it's just something that is available upon request.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Brian, why don't you talk about costs a little bit? I mean, that's something that really hasn't changed much since we've talked last, right? Like cost per bag.
Don't say that out loud, Will. The world is fluid. No, we're lucky. We haven't had any.
That's been so nice.
It has been, but it's tough, So there's been some changes, like going to a full pallet for a minimum order on a wholesale order was really because it was getting too expensive to ship 20 bags or half pallets around, and we didn't want the price of the food to go up per bag. So something's got to give, right? Luckily, we make our food.
Resellers.
Yeah, we really do want anyone who needs less than a pallet to be going. So talking on price, going to a reseller. There's 3 ways to buy a Inukshuk. If you need a pallet, no one's going to give you a better price than us. We make it. We have it. We'll ship it to you. We can get anywhere in North America and beyond. Hit us up. That's going to be your best value, obviously. A solid pallet of one formula is the best because there's like fuel surcharges and liftgate charges per order. So if you're doing like a mixed pallet, we charge a little bit more for that because we got to build up that custom pallet. And then if you're ordering multiple pallets,
mixed pallet, meaning like we want
more than one formula on a pallet. So a pallet's between 50 and 65 bags, depending on the formula. Okay. And a mixed pallet just has more than one formula. So our warehouse guys will break down a pallet of 30-25 and a pallet of 26-16. They'll build you up your custom. They'll wrap it because we have an amazing warehouse and a facility there. So we wanted to get it to you in the best condition possible. So we mix them at our facility in Fredericton, ship it to Maine, and then off it goes to our American customers or to our Canadian customers from our warehouse. So that's the one way to buy it, wholesale direct. Best value if you need a lot of dog food. The second best way to buy it is through our trusted resellers. So because the focus of the business is by the pallet, it means that we can't be in big box stores. Because if you go into a big box store or a chain store, they say, okay, great, we have this whole area on lockdown. If anyone needs it, they have to go to us, no other retail partners, because there's an assumed level of volume there that they think will make that tempting. And for some formulas and brands, sure. But again, that lane that we're trying to focus on is we know there's a lot of people out there that need to buy the pallet, and we want to give them the best price and the best value on it and be directly controlling of it because we're really proud of this thing. We don't want to lose its specialness. So to compensate for not having our product in big box stores, anyone who buys a pallet and wants to and has a setup to do so and a client base can resell the food. So we have over 400 trusted resellers now in Canada and the States. And that's only been from really focusing on growing that for about 1.5 to 2 years. So we're pretty happy with that. The third way to buy it, though, if there's not a trusted reseller in your area, is through one of our online partners. In the States, we have Dog Food Direct and Chewy are the 2 biggest ones. That's going to be the most expensive place that you find the food. Okay. Chewy doesn't charge shipping and Dog Food Direct does. So you'll see a price difference there, but it kind of shakes out to the same thing. And then in Canada, through our website, inukshukpro.com, we can ship a bag out to almost any address in Canada. Okay. So that's, always going to be the most expensive is buy the bag online because dog food is expensive and heavy and costs money to ship. And then it's going to be trusted reseller, better price, better service. You're part of a community. There's a lot of good things and reasons to look for a trusted reseller in your area. And then if you need a lot of food, though, more than a trusted reseller can provide to you, a pallet or more, wholesale direct from us. And that's really the three ways. So prices vary per region. We have all our price lists available to, again, anyone who wants them. We don't put them all up there on the website, again, because someone might not read it quickly enough and assume the price has changed and there's complications. So we just want to make sure that they get the correct pricing from us. And Chewy, Dog Food Direct, Trusted Reseller, or inukshukpro.com, and that's how you can get it. So it's going to get easier and easier and easier to get no matter where you are, the more we grow. Yeah, that's all there is to it.
That's fantastic. Clarifying question on the pallet orders from you directly. So if someone wants to order a pallet of dog food, anyone can do that, right? You don't have to be a trusted reseller. Like anyone could say,
if
I
you
want
just need dog food. Yeah, you don't have to resell it. That's just there if you have an existing business that your client base, this would be a good complement to that business, right? Another service. A lot of breeders, they send their dogs home with the food because it's what they're feeding at home. And a lot of people want to continue and they trust the breeder, right? But no, if you just need a lot of dog food, we'll just send you. And what's a big thing that people are doing, and this is at Pheasant Fest, this is what peeled their eyes back. There's a lot of people out there who have maybe 4 or 5 dogs and they don't need a pallet. Yep. But if 2 or 3 other people
they're going
also
in
have
with
4 or 5 dogs, just get it together. We'll drop ship it to any address, pool your money together, and we can make that happen. Yeah. The food lasts 24 months in the bag for our 3 original formulas from production date, or 18 months for our marine formulas. So there's no worry about spoilage. There's a great shelf life. We have a one-way air valve in the bag that makes it more airtight and more airtight as air goes on because it's expelling more and more air. So a fresh bag of Inukshuk might feel a little squishy or be a little floaty. That's just because she's fresh. If it's a little dimply, it just means it took a couple weeks to get to you and it's had time to expel all that air out of there. But it keeps really well. So that there's a lot of growth going on there where people are like, oh, well, I can do 20 bags, but maybe not 65.
I've been seeing more of that. lately.
Yeah.
A lot of people kind of going in on a pallet together, and I think it's smart.
And hunting groups, there's groups everywhere, right? And you can even sell that food back and put it back into the group you can do fundraisers with it and things like that. So there's a lot of unique ways to take advantage of the wholesale program and the reseller program.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, guys, kind of a closing question, and I would love to hear from either of you, both of you, even what makes a Inukshuk different? Like when it boils down to it, like why should someone? Let's say they've been kind of teasing, hey, I've kind of wanted to try it. Maybe I don't know if I want to. Like, just what's your pitch to say, hey, what makes a Inukshuk different than something else out there, or better, in your opinions?
I have a few answers, but I can save them if you want to go first.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from each of you, actually. So yeah, Emily, go for it.
Yeah, I think, okay, I'll you go. Yeah. I was going to give you time to cook, but it doesn't look like you need it. Yeah, no, you go.
Brian's ready to go. He's like fired up right now in his little closet.
This is the question they hired me to answer.
2 things. Well, 3, there's more than 2 things, but I'll start with 2 things and let Brian take over. One of the things that does make us very different is that most working dog food that's out there is it was a brand design primarily for pet dogs, and they have a working dog add-on, right? The thing about Inukshuk is that it was specifically designed for dogs with jobs from the get-go, all science-based, no bullshit. That's the reality. Sure. And I guess I got one extra thing, Brian.
Keep going.
So they go hand in hand. The other thing is that since we do own our manufacturing facility and we're family owned, we have complete control over quality, and formulation integrity, and all of these things that are a little bit more variable as you get to be bigger. Like we put our name right on the back of that bag because we take pride in what we do. And while other guys have shareholders and folks they need to report back to, we don't. So we don't have to worry about, you talk about us not changing our prices very much in the last little while. We've taken a bit of a bite on that, and that's because we care about you guys, but we don't have anybody else to report to. We are all about maintaining our formula, and maintaining our formula is something that if you're working with a working dog and that's got a job to perform, that needs to be the same every time. You need to be able to rely on us. We can't be a variable in your world. You need it to perform. So, our prices have gone up a little bit in the last couple of years, but we've taken a chunk because we care about you guys, and we do want to keep things the exact same. We want you to rely on us.
Yeah. I love that. And I can say from myself and the hunting community, which has been just, again, I've been so excited to see the amount of kennels and bird dog people who are switching to Inukshuk and loving it. So thank you guys for, keeping
it's been awesome. The hunting community is very welcoming, very engaging, loves showing off their dogs and going, like the thing, I didn't understand trials at first, but now I get it. Hanging out with good people is fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whatever excuse you got to do that, you mix in dogs and some competition, whatever, it all just makes so much sense.
Yeah. It's so much, and bird dog people too. We're always like, obviously everyone, you care about your dogs, your pets, whatever it might be. Like we're always looking for that like next step, that what's that next best thing? Cause you care about your dog, you want to feed them the best. Yeah. And they're performing at a really, really high level. And
performance was going to be my answer. That's the thing. Yeah. No one makes food the way we do, and no one gets the performance out of their food that we do. Sure. The Iditarod just finished. 50% of the dogs in the Iditarod were eating our food. Oh, wow. 6 out of 10 of the top 10 finishers are on Inukshuk. Like this food is different. The food is the difference. It's not how we say or what we do. And we might do business differently, and we might, be a little bit like on the fringe of operating the way you're used to, like a big dog food brand goes. But that's just because we're able to, and it's more fun this way, and it allows you to do something different. But the food, no one's doing what we're doing, and no one's going to we kind of walk backwards into it. Which is really lucky because we all have jobs that we love. But like, no big company is going to retrofit the 10 factories that they make their food in that they don't own to vacuum infuse food. It's not viable. It doesn't make sense on paper. It doesn't make sense anywhere. So it's the production and the performance, I think, are the big things. Again, the food's the big difference. Yeah, that's let it speak for itself. Really. Which sounds like a cheat answer. Like, what's so different about your food to say the food? But like, if you have to distill it. Yeah, you let it speak for itself. And when someone compliments your dog because how nice they look and how they're built and their muscle and their coat, it's like, well, thank you, and they're on an Inukshuk. Yeah, and we get that not every food is going to be right for every dog, and we're not going to ever try to force the issue. We do want to allow people to try things. We have sample bags in Canada. Chewy will give you your money back, no questions asked. In the States, trusted resellers have samples. We want the food to prove it to you. We don't want to necessarily prove it to you. We want to educate you on to maybe why you should try, but we want the food to be the thing that sells you on it. And luckily, if you have a performance dog, it's hard to tell on a pet. Oh, my pet liked the last food and it likes this food. It likes lying on the couch. I don't know if it's any different, but when your dog doesn't talk to you and tell you what? Well, he talks to me, but he's not telling me that anyways. Maybe it's more. But when you have a performance animal and that there's things that you can measure that are a difference, and you notice that's where it all is. That's where the magic happens. Mm-hmm. I love that. All right. For my closing questions, my rapid fire round, I'm just going to ask you each one question. It's the same one, so you guys can pick your own answers. For you and your own dogs, pick your favorite formula that you're feeding your dogs. Emily?
You want me to go first?
We actually don't feed our dogs Inukshuk. No. Just joking. No.
And podcast over.
My collies tend to be our test dogs. So the first
so they've tried it all.
They've tried it all.
What are we on today?
Collie pigs.
But so they were on the 30-25 for a long time. Then the Marine 25 when it launched, and now they're on the Marine 16. So it just depends. It's wintertime. We've been a little bit lazy for the last couple months, so we got a little bit fatter, and so we're a little lighter right now.
There you go.
Fluffy. We like to say we're fluffy.
Fluffy dog. That's I'm going into a trial tomorrow, and I'm like, Gage and I both are a little out of shape, so we'll see how this goes.
Just fluffy. It's fine.
Brian, pick one food. Which one?
I give Ace Marine 25 and 30-25. I mix it up. Okay. He's not like super enthusiastic over food, so mixing it up helps, I find, keep him interested in it. Sometimes he won't eat his breakfast till like 5 or 6 kind of thing. Okay. So I just go back and forth. And like his coat, honestly, like when we first made Marine 25 and I was trying him on it consistently for about 3 months, he always had a nice soft coat, but it felt like he was bathing in lotion. Like it was like he was made of hair conditioner. He was so soft all of a sudden. So I do like incorporating that, but he's a 30-25 blend and whatever. Yeah. He likes them both. I don't even actually think if you notice this is different at this point.
Right. He's like, what's for,
so maybe I think that I'm doing this nice thing of giving him variety.
Right.
He's like, thanks, cereal again. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's like, this is the best cereal, Dad. Really appreciate it.
Oh, we all have our dog voices too. So my dog voices are a little bit more high pitched, but
Ace's is actually like a little slower, a little lower.
Yeah, it's like their personality a little bit too. Kind of take
What's going on here, guys?
Exactly.
You want to
It's like a surfer dude dog, or was it?
A little bit, yeah. He's a little
it kind of is.
I know. Had like a little dopey surfer.
Yeah, he's a little Scooby-Doo, he's a little, he's got that in him. He's not as wound up as Scooby.
This podcast has officially taken a turn.
Well, we appreciate the time, man, and we really do appreciate everything that you've done for us and the people you've connected us with, and we wish you nothing but more growing success with the show. I think obviously your listeners are digging it. It's growing, so congrats on everything, Will. And to do it with everything else you got going on, hats off.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's fun. It's crazy, but it's been really fun. So thank you both for coming on here. Emily, great to meet you. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us. Brian, thank you again as well. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you guys again very soon. So I appreciate it.
Over and out. Thanks, Will.
Very much.
Thanks. And that's a wrap of episode 81 with Emily Corey and Brian Conoley from Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. Hey guys, thank you so much just for taking the time to kind of debunk some of these maybe myths or just some honest listener questions. I think that are really good. Honest questions. There's questions that I've had over the last couple of years with Inukshuk that I've either reached out to you guys or talked with people to kind of understand better. So really appreciate you guys taking the time to unpack that for everyone. Hey everyone, don't forget, rate and review the podcast. Just real quick, head on over Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a rating, little star system, and then a written review would hugely help the podcast. Just helps the algorithms of Apple Podcasts. The more positive ratings and reviews a show has, it's going to show up higher in a feed when someone out there sits at their computer and goes, I'm looking for a podcast, Upland Hunting Podcast. And Upland Rookie might pop up a little higher and maybe help someone out there. Maybe someone's just kind of curious about upland hunting, dogs, training, whatever it might be. And if this show can help someone in some way or another, I think that's what this is all about. This is why I started it. Just kind of share my experience, learn from others, learn from people who have been further down the path, who have been around bird dogs and around hunting for a lot longer than I have sometimes, and be able to learn from them. So that's kind of the whole point. So if you haven't already, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review, and don't forget to head over to YouTube. Podcast episodes are up there. Got some other video content, and more stuff will be coming in the future. Until next time, go put some miles on those boots and follow your favorite bird dog. Take care.